Hello everyone, nice to have you back again for another episode of our 107 channel. Today's topic is the front shock absorbers. Tools needed and how to change them yourself will be shown right after introduction. Later on I also show you the alterations which were introduced after 1985 concerning the shocks. Stay tuned. Tools needed are being laid out here: a ratchet of a 1/2 inch, a 13 socket for the lower mountings, plus two new self-securing nuts size 13, a 17 socket and a set of spanners to work on the upper mountings of the shock. We need to lose two nuts, one of them is a self-securing nut. There are special sockets to work on the rod of the shock, keeping it from turning. But an ordinary spanner can do as well. This special socket was being developed to accomplish the job faster, especially in cramped engine bays with little room to move, such as the V8 engine bays. But hey, how often do you change the shocks? So the tool is not really necessary. In addition to that, you need a jack and an hydraulical jack to prevent the lower control arm from moving. The full extension of the spring is, in comparison, larger than the full extension of the shocks. Keep that in mind, please. The easiest way to do it is removing the concerning wheel when the car is sitting on them. Then use a second hydraulical jack to support the lower control arm. Well, this much as upfront information. Let us get started. Car has been lifted, front left wheel has been removed, lower control arm is being secured. Off we go. We start. Open bonnet, unbolt the top mounting of the shock over here. On the left hand side, access is easier in comparison to the right hand side. Starting with the lock nut, below of it is the second nut. Once the two nuts of the upper mounting have been removed, start removing the bolts of the lower mounting using sockets of size 13. Once the lower bolts have been removed, we pull the shock a little downwards by grabbing the dust sleeve firmly. Do this in a careful manner to prevent the edgy tips of the shock scratching the paint. Now grab the piston at the shock firmly and remove it without scratching anything. Well, I do have a green mark here for some reason. Here you see the top of the shock once the dust sleeve is removed. While we are here, let us clean the lower seat where the shock is being bolted on. Well, here we have the new shock. It is a little tricky with these two supporting washers and the twin rubber pads. Do not confuse these two washers. The upper washer will later on be installed in the engine bay on top of the housing with the top rubber pad, while the lower rubber pad is being placed from underneath in its reinforced seat. The lower washer is sitting on this spacer sleeve. Have a look. Even if the old shock did not have such a spacer sleeve, make sure the new one has, as before mentioned, alterations after 1985. Before mounting the shock, tighten these two bolts firmly. They may not move around afterwards. Off we go. Let us mount that thing. Start from below, putting the shock in place, then take the nut on the top to secure the shock in place. Well, shock has been mounted, as mentioned before. It is crucial to prevent the rod from turning by securing it with a 5er spanner while you tighten the top nuts. There is a special spanner that you put from on top onto the tip of the rod to prevent it from spinning around. If you do not have it, use an ordinary spanner of size 5 and tighten the bolts with a spanner size 17. If you fail in doing so, the rod will spin around its axle and may be damaging the shock itself by being detached from the valve inside the pressure tube, which could cause severe injuries. The piston rod jumps to the top. In addition to that, the shock is useless afterwards. I hammer on this. It is important when removing and remounting the shock, make sure you secure the top with a 5er spanner and prevent the rod from spinning. May be unnecessary to say that you always change the shocks on both sides of the axle. Now we have an exception. You can also only change a damaged shock on only one side, provided they both dampen the ride equally and the replaced shock is identical to the other one. Well, here in this case, they both need changing. They are both worn out. Really make sure they are identical to assure a smooth ride. I will show you a drop-down table with all specifications referring to the possible combinations of springs, spring paddings and approved shock absorbers. Hope you have liked it. Share it if you please. Give me a thumb up. Subscribe if you please. Would love to see you around for my next episode. Take care. Bye bye everyone.